Emily Carter never envisioned encountering her former spouse, James Thompson, once more in such remarkable conditions. The final occasion they communicated, they had finalized their separation documents and gone their separate paths amid a cloud of sorrow and bitterness. Now, after a span of 2 years, he is displaying his stunning bride-to-be, Victoria Langford, during a prominent gathering, completely unaware of the incredible truth regarding Emily's new partner, Alexander Hayes. What James remains oblivious to is that Alexander is not merely an ordinary charitable contributor. He is a tycoon possessing immense authority and sway, prepared to immerse Emily in an existence of opulence she had never ventured to envision. Get ready for an emotional whirlwind involving retribution, controversy, and poignant restoration. Rain pounded against the panes of the modest coffee shop on East 32nd Street, while Emily Carter savored her latte. It was an unusually chilly afternoon in the middle of June, and the coffee shop named Brewhaven was filled with patrons escaping the torrent. Emily, attired in a plain gray sweater and pants, experienced an odd combination of serenity and persistent unease. A year earlier, she could not have pictured herself seated here, at ease with her own thoughts following the turbulent upheaval that marked her separation. Her thoughts wandered back to the day she and James had completed the ultimate paperwork. There had been fury, remorse, and weeping sufficient to overflow a sea. They had started their union as idealistic university lovers who thought affection was adequate to overcome all obstacles. However, gradually, James's drive had transformed into cutthroat rivalry, and Emily's aspirations for a nurturing companion had disintegrated beneath ongoing disapproval. They quarreled over finances, ways of living, and what lay ahead. Eventually, the fissures widened into abysses. A loud vehicle horn from outdoors snapped her out of her reflections. She examined her device for notifications. Alexander Hayes, a gentleman she had started dating 2 months prior, had assured her he would arrive following his appointment. They planned to proceed to a museum exhibit afterward, organized by her close companion Sophia Lee, an emerging organizer. Emily sensed that familiar protective instinct within, cautioning her against excessive optimism. Nevertheless, Alexander had never provided her with cause for skepticism. He was kind, considerate, and remarkably modest for an individual whose acts of benevolence frequently rendered her astonished. At that precise instant, the chime above the coffee shop entrance rang. Emily glanced upward, anticipating Alexander. Instead, her pulse nearly halted. James Thompson entered, brushing water from his rain gear. He appeared largely unaltered, still lofty, still assured, still bearing the subtle trace of conceit in his survey of the area. Her stomach constricted, a former pain ignited. She contemplated hiding behind her beverage container, but it was too tardy. He had noticed her. "Emily," he uttered, nearing her spot with wary interest. "Incredible, it's been ages." James was clad in a dark gray outfit that likely equaled a month's lease in Uptown. His locks, formerly youthful and disheveled, were now perfectly arranged. He embodied the image of the professional triumph he had strived for. James eyed the chair opposite her. Without awaiting permission, he seated himself, disregarding the queue of patrons trailing him. Classic James. He perpetually needed to be the focal point. "Yes, it certainly has been some time," Emily responded, striving to maintain a steady tone. Despite her efforts at composure, her palms shook mildly, and she set her beverage container back on its plate to stabilize herself. It was dreamlike to confront him again in such an unforeseen instance. She momentarily pondered how existence had treated him. For a brief second, she remembered the fierce disputes that had intensified to their concluding allegations concerning who provided more economically, who offered greater assistance, who relinquished more. She inhaled deliberately, resolved not to permit those recollections to spoil her recently discovered sense of identity. "You appear healthy," James proceeded. "I learned you relocated back to the Central District. How are things with you?" He attempted a grin, but it seemed somewhat strained. They were no longer the identical individuals who had once cohabited and shared intimacy. "I'm managing well," Emily answered, "simply handling matters one day after another." "And yourself?" "Occupied as usual. I was merely conferring with an associate in the vicinity." He halted, tapping his digits on the surface. Listen, I'm aware our conclusion was unpleasant. Emily prepared for him to reference history or issue some severe judgment. Instead, he swallowed and grasped a tissue, cleaning an imaginary mark from the surface, delaying. James could have felt a minor pang of remorse. She observed it in his evasive gaze. But I truly wish you're fine, he concluded. I am, she stated gently. She was uncertain if that was entirely accurate, or if she merely desired to accept it. Truly, I'm all right. That was the moment the coffee shop entrance opened once more, admitting another burst of breeze and moisture. Emily's spirit lifted. Alexander entered, surveying the space, tall and refined in a custom-fitted dark jacket and corresponding trousers. He identified Emily, and an affectionate grin illuminated his countenance. James tracked her glance, bewilderment flashing in his gaze. Emily. Hello, Alexander stated, approaching with a particular subdued assurance. Apologies for the delay. The discussion extended. He positioned a tender palm on her arm and bent to deliver a mild peck on her face. James raised a brow. So this is... Emily experienced a brief surge of discomfort. James, this is Alexander Hayes, my partner. Alexander, this is James Thompson, my previous spouse. The strain that enveloped the surface was nearly tangible. Alexander's demeanor stayed courteous. He offered a handshake to James, who accepted it rather rigidly. Pleased to encounter you, Alexander remarked, preserving his poise. Similarly, James provided. He appeared more courteous than he seemed. His gaze darted across Alexander, evaluating him as one might appraise a rival. Well, I should depart. I need to collect Victoria shortly. Emily sensed an abrupt shock at the mention. Victoria. She dimly remembered James referencing a colleague by that title during their concluding year of union, a colleague he appeared to esteem overly. Or perhaps that was her doubt speaking. Regardless, the reference to her substituted any melancholy with a brewing irritation. James was betrothed, evidently. She swiftly composed her expression to stay impartial. Pleasant encountering you, Emily, James went on. He inclined his head at Alexander. And it was pleasant to meet you, Mr. Hayes. Perhaps our paths will intersect again. Alexander offered a courteous grin. Maybe. Farewell. With that, James exited the coffee shop, leaving the subtle aroma of costly fragrance and a vortex of unresolved inquiries. Alexander drew out a seat and positioned himself, laying a cautious palm on Emily's. Are you all right? He inquired softly. Emily compelled a grin, determined not to allow the unexpected meeting to unsettle her. I'm fine, she whispered. Merely unexpected, that's all. He compressed her palm tenderly. If he ever disturbs you, or if you require distance, simply inform me. I can manage it. No, it's all right, she interjected. I'm beyond him. At least I believe I am. She exhaled, contemplating how James's appearance still caused her torso to constrict. Let's proceed to the museum exhibit. Sophia is anticipating us. Alexander agreed and rose, assisting Emily with her outerwear like an ideal, courteous man. As they ventured back into the drizzly avenue, Emily recognized that James had bequeathed her with countless conflicting notions churning within. She had no inkling this fortuitous meeting was merely the commencement of an intricate network poised to unravel. A network that would juxtapose ancient grudges against fresh aspirations and disclose mysteries so astonishing that none implicated could conceivably surface unaltered. 2 days afterward, Emily discovered herself in a brightly illuminated section of her residence, sorting through aged picture collections she had crammed into a storage container following the separation. Why she had selected this precise instant to re-examine former recollections, she could not entirely clarify. Maybe observing James had sparked a surge of reminiscence, positive, negative, and all in between. Her device chimed. It was Sophia Lee messaging. Did you view the piece in the City Herald regarding James's forthcoming betrothal celebration? I heard they're making it enormous. Like, get your identity in the elite sections enormous. Are you okay? Emily furrowed her brow. She responded swiftly. I'm all right, just somewhat astonished. We encountered each other yesterday. Sophia answered with a flood of astonished symbols, succeeded by, he's showcasing Victoria extensively. She's supposedly from a prominent lineage. Gossip indicates they're arranging an extravagant occasion next month. If you require encouragement, you know I'm available. Emily breathed out profoundly. So that was the situation. James, perpetually fixated on prestige, was proclaiming his fresh betrothal with pomp. Deep within, a spark of injury ignited. They had once conversed about a humble ceremony renewal upon achieving their decade milestone, merely a secluded affair with intimate companions. Now that vision was insignificant, eclipsed by his magnificent display. Glancing back at the images, she encountered one from their university era. James, with tousled locks and sparkling gaze, embracing her firmly before their campus residence. The recollection of that youthful, optimistic duo caused her chest to throb. How had everything deteriorated so dreadfully? She placed the image aside, resolved not to permit her feelings to escalate. Her existence had transformed since the separation. She possessed her own emerging interior design firm, Carter Creations, ironically retaining the surname since her enterprise had been established under that title before the division. She had cultivated a humble yet expanding customer base. And then there was Alexander, who had materialized in her life like a refreshing breeze. She considered Alexander's affectionate grin and mild demeanor. They encountered at a benefit soiree Sophia had welcomed her to several months prior. He had been present discreetly, presented as a benevolent contributor to diverse communal initiatives. The pair had connected, conversing about creativity, design, and journeys. She had only discerned the slightest indications concerning his genuine prosperity and legacy from his deceased ancestor, some fractional stake in a digital enterprise, since Alexander seldom addressed monetary matters. When he had requested a rendezvous, she had wavered, unsure if she was prepared. But something regarding Alexander evoked confidence. They had been steadily constructing a connection since then. Her device alerted again, drawing her from her contemplation. This occasion, it was a communication from Alexander himself. Early supper this evening. Or, I can visit your office, and we can obtain beverages afterward. Emily grinned at the display. A feeling of appreciation enveloped her. She dispatched a response. Supper sounds ideal. I'm preparing to go to the office for a few hours, but I'll be available by 6. See you then. She restored the picture collections to their dusty container and stored them in a cupboard, hoping she could accomplish the same with the sentimental load they bore. James and Victoria's grand betrothal celebration would undoubtedly become conversation fodder. Emily simply needed to continue advancing with her own existence, reminding herself that history was history. Yet profoundly, she could not dispel an odd sensation that her trajectories with James were not concluded intersecting, and that the previous spouse she believed she had abandoned might return forcefully into her life, dragging complications with him. The bell over the sophisticated Italian eatery's entrance sounded as Alexander directed Emily inside. A palm lightly rested at the base of her spine. Chez Antoine was a luxurious venue on the Lower West Side, renowned for its intricate pasta dishes and exceptional wine selection. Gentle piano melodies and warm illumination from antique fixtures greeted them. The host identified Alexander instantly and escorted them to a secluded corner spot distant from curious observers. Emily positioned herself in her chair, examining the arrangement of sparkling utensils and pristine white cloths. She observed other pairs at adjacent spots, some of them peeking in Alexander's direction as if they identified him, or at least presumed he was somebody significant. It was something she had become accustomed to. Whenever they ventured out, there perpetually appeared to be a suggestion of conjecture in individual stares. Alexander managed it with courteous detachment, never disclosing more than essential. I've arranged a bottle of your preferred white wine, Alexander informed her, his grin brightening his features. I believe we could commemorate your fresh project agreement. Emily's mouth arched upward. Earlier that day, she had secured a substantial agreement with a luxury resort group, something that could propel her design firm to the subsequent level. They had discovered her creations on online platforms and contacted her after viewing her collection. That's so considerate, she remarked. I still can't accept they selected me. Alexander extended across the surface and grasped her palm. You merit every achievement. Felicitations. A wine steward neared with the bottle, dispensing them each a portion. They raised a toast silently, the delicate ring of glass resonating in the close environment. Emily sampled a portion, the smooth consistency of the wine soothing her palate. They shared updates about their day. Alexander referenced an impending journey to London for a charitable symposium, cautiously evading excessive particulars of his economic transactions. Emily spoke enthusiastically about the forthcoming concepts she was developing for the resort group. Midway through the repast, a delicious risotto for her and a grilled steak for him, Alexander swallowed. "I've been contemplating," he started, gazing downward at his dish as if practicing his phrases, "about presenting you to certain individuals in my network. You know, companions, professional contacts. I simply desire them to learn about the remarkable lady I'm with." Emily halted, utensil midway to her lips. "You do?" she questioned, heart fluttering. They had been courting for a pair of months, but she still sensed they were in a fragile phase. Encountering people in his network sounded potentially daunting, given that Alexander's network was probably replete with influential figures. He affirmed, placing down his cloth, "I don't wish to compel you into anything, but there's a benefit event next week. I'd like you beside me, if that's acceptable." A vortex of feelings pulled at her. Thrill, inquisitiveness, a touch of apprehension. "Certainly," she answered softly. "I'd be privileged." Alexander's countenance brightened. He grasped for her palm again, caressing his digit tenderly over her joints. "Thank you. I'm truly content to have you in my existence, Emily." They lingered over a treat, an exquisite fruit tart, and discussed simpler matters, preferred literature, youthful recollections, prospective voyages. Emily discovered herself floating in the warmth of opportunity, releasing the shadowy aspects of her history. James's title lingered unspoken among them, but she felt no necessity to mention him that evening. This was her period with Alexander, a realm devoid of remorse. By the time they concluded, the eatery was shutting. They emerged into the fresh evening atmosphere. "I'll transport you home," Alexander stated, guiding her to a smooth silver vehicle awaiting at the edge. She remembered the initial occasion he had appeared with a chauffeur. She had demanded utilizing a taxi to meet him because it appeared too lavish to arrive in a driven automobile. Over time, she had become more at ease, though she still demanded compensating her own expenses whenever feasible. Inside the vehicle, Alexander's limb draped around her arms, and she reclined into him, relaxed. She shut her eyes, permitting the radiance of road illuminations to flicker across the panes as they navigated through the metropolis. The drone of the motor soothed her into a tranquil daydream. In that instant, she dared to accept that her existence could progress, unencumbered by the anguish that once overwhelmed her. Morning radiance poured through the high panes of Emily's design office. She sat at her sketching surface, meticulously completing drawings for the luxury resort endeavor. Pencil strokes evolved into graceful bends and structures, embodying her concept for a contemporary yet comfortable interior. The office telephone sounded, startling her from her concentrated state. "Emily Carter. Carter Creations," she responded, placing the pencil behind her ear. "Emily, it's me, Sophia," came her companion's thrilled voice. "You won't accept this. I just learned from an associate at the City Herald that James and Victoria are organizing a betrothal gala at the Grand Plaza Hotel next week. And guess what more? They're evidently welcoming everyone from your former social group, companions, associates, even some of your shared patrons." Emily's abdomen twisted. "Why in the world would they welcome me, though?" That's the matter. Rumor is James doesn't desire you there, but Victoria evidently demanded. She informed the Herald she desires a peaceful future. Or perhaps she's merely attempting to boast. Sophia halted. "I know you probably don't concern yourself anymore, but I think it might be crucial for you to be informed just in case an invitation arrives." Emily breathed out gradually. She hadn't imagined James's betrothal would circulate so openly, but given his craving for societal standing, it wasn't astonishing. "Thanks for informing me," Emily stated. "If I receive an invitation, I'll consider it thoroughly before replying." "Just recall you owe them nothing," Sophia added. "By the way, how's Alexander?" At the reference to Alexander, Emily's lips curved. "He's fine. He wants to present me to his network at some elegant benefit. Actually, that's also next week. I have a feeling my agenda is about to become busy. Sophia chuckled. Better you than me. I'm delighted for you, though. If you need an escort to James's disaster or a protector, I'm here. They concluded the call, and Emily stared at the telephone for an instant. She was sure that James's betrothal gala would be a sparkling exhibition of upper-class and business leaders. Victoria Langford, Emily now recalled, originated from established wealth in Philadelphia. She had been rumored to be a sharp legal expert. James probably viewed her as both a romantic and tactical alliance. That afternoon, a delivery messenger delivered a large ivory envelope with silver detailing. Emily felt her heartbeat accelerate. The sender's address read, Mr. James Thompson and Miss Victoria Langford. She sighed. So the gossip was accurate. They truly had invited her. Inside, the invitation was substantial and shiny, outlining the forthcoming gala at the Grand Plaza. Emily folded it back into the envelope, unsure whether to discard it or conceal it. Part of her thought it was a dominance maneuver by Victoria, an effort to seem benevolent or to emphasize Emily's situation in their new prestige. Later that evening, as she relaxed at home, Emily pondered the invitation. She would discuss it with Alexander and see his opinion. Perhaps they could avoid it completely. She had no wish to observe James display his bride-to-be. Then again, a minor voice within her suggested that it might be therapeutic to enter with her own companion, someone who genuinely appreciated her, and demonstrate that she wasn't the shattered Lady James had abandoned. She retrieved her device and contacted Alexander. He answered on the second tone. Emily, hello. I was just considering you. Well, I've just obtained something intriguing, Emily stated, her voice laced with sarcasm. An invitation to James's betrothal gala. Alexander paused. How do you feel about that? She curled up on her sofa, clutching a cushion, conflicted. Part of me doesn't want to attend, but another part, I'm inquisitive. Maybe I want resolution, or maybe I just want to show that I'm fine. Also, Victoria specifically invited me. It feels like a snare, but perhaps I'm overanalyzing it. Alexander's tone was tender. I'll back whatever you choose. If you want me beside you, just say so. If you don't want to go, we can do something else. Somewhere distant from that exhibition. Emily's strain lessened at his comprehension. I'll contemplate it, she said. In the meantime, we still have a benefit next week. I'll concentrate on that for now. Little did Emily know, the upcoming occasions would clash in manners she couldn't foresee. The realms of James, Victoria, and Alexander were on a crash path, and when they ultimately converged, the consequences would be unlike anything Emily had ever encountered. The subsequent week came in a rush of anxiety and anticipation. Emily stood before the mirror in Alexander's luxurious apartment, a vast contemporary area overlooking the river. She donned a sophisticated sapphire evening dress that accentuated her form. Sophia had visited earlier to assist in arranging her hair into a flowing style. Now her image radiated a subtle assurance she wasn't completely certain she possessed. Alexander, modifying his sleeve fasteners, approached beside her. You look stunning, he whispered, placing a tender kiss on her forehead. Are you prepared? As prepared as I can be, Emily said, achieving a slight grin. I still don't know who all will be present. Alexander wavered for a moment. It's going to be a blend of benefactors, financiers, and a few famous personalities who advocate various initiatives. These gatherings can become a bit intense, so if at any point you want to depart, just inform me. They reached the magnificent hall of the Evergreen Hotel, met by flashing lenses and a stream of affluent contributors exiting elegant vehicles. Emily remained near Alexander, experiencing a wave of relief when they finally crossed the threshold and entered the ornately adorned chamber. Crystal fixtures sparkled above, and attendants moved through with sparkling drink glasses. Almost at once, an impressive lady with dark hair hurried forward. Alexander, dear, she exclaimed, exchanging air kisses on both his cheeks. So wonderful to see you. And who is this beautiful woman? Alexander placed a palm at Emily's back. Laura, meet Emily Carter, my companion. Emily, this is Laura Gomez, a director of the International Culture Organization. Laura's gaze brightened. Delighted to meet you, dear. Alexander mentioned you're a designer. How marvelous. We must discuss our new artistic hub we're planning in Queens. They traded courtesies. Emily felt somewhat overwhelmed by Laura's zeal. As additional individuals approached, the dialogues followed a comparable pattern. Courteous salutations, gentle curiosity about Emily's history, then shifting to charitable or commercial concerns. She swiftly realized that many of these people operated in spheres of inconceivable riches, forming partnerships through contributions and communal gatherings. Midway through the night, she stepped aside to appreciate a presentation highlighting the organization's achievements, images of clinics constructed in remote areas, creative grants provided, and ecological recovery efforts. She was silently perusing a sign about a preservation initiative in Asia when a voice surprised her from behind. "Emily Carter, is that you?" The voice was masculine, somewhat recognizable. She turned to observe Robert Hayes, an old associate of James's, and a man with whom James had once debated property enterprises. Robert's gaze expanded in acknowledgement. "I almost didn't trust it. How are you?" Emily compelled a courteous grin. "I'm well, Robert. Didn't anticipate seeing you here." "I'm a supporter," he replied, twirling the liquid in his vessel. "Always beneficial for commerce to contribute to deserving efforts, right?" He offered a smile that didn't quite extend to his gaze. "Actually, I've got a spot next to a James Thompson at the upcoming betrothal occasion. You intending to participate?" Emily felt her stance rigidify. "Still deciding," she said cautiously. Robert emitted a quiet laugh. "You should attend. James has been boasting endlessly about his new bride-to-be. Something about her father's links in the capital. He's certainly advancing." A surge of irritation coursed through her. "Trust me, I'm not lacking anything. Besides, I'm here with someone else," she said, glancing around for Alexander, hoping to conclude this uneasy dialogue. Robert grasped the implication. "All right, I'll allow you to proceed. Take care, Emily." He wandered away, vessel of wine and grasp, leaving her with a sour remnant of history. She breathed out, leaning against the presentation. Abruptly, a warm hand touched her arm. She turned to see Alexander, worry in his stare. "Everything fine?" She compelled a grin. "Yes, just someone from my former existence. Let's get some fresh air." He agreed, leading her out to a balcony overlooking the urban horizon. Cool night air brushed her face. She closed her eyes, sensing Alexander's presence behind her. "Emily," he said quietly, "I know encountering people from your history can evoke unwelcome recollections, but I hope you know I'm here for you." She turned to confront him, tears threatening to emerge. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm fine. It's just that my previous spouse's betrothal gala is days away, and I guess I'm still coping with how he used to diminish me. I don't want to be that lady who can't release." Alexander brushed a lock of hair from her face. "You're not that lady. But if you decide you need to attend that betrothal occasion for resolution, I'll accompany you." A small spark of thankfulness flickered in her chest. "I appreciate that," she said, stepping closer to rest her head on his shoulder. High above the metropolis, under the glow of towering structures' illuminations, Emily began to perceive that events were swirling in a direction she could not fully anticipate. Something informed her that James's opulent festivity would be more than just a betrothal gala. Mysteries were stirring, some of which might alter everything she believed about her history and her future. The Grand Plaza Hotel gleamed with extravagance as Emily arrived arm in arm with Alexander. She had resolved, after much deliberation, that participating in James's betrothal gala was an essential step to completely seal the chapter on her prior union. Alexander, in a smooth, dark formal attire, was a bastion of tranquility beside her. Emily wore a deep purple gown that contrasted beautifully with her light hair, and she felt a surge of confidence she wished she had possessed years ago. A crimson pathway lined the entrance where photographers capture images of distinguished visitors, many of them executives, officials, and elite members. As they stepped inside, a lavish flower display dominated the lobby, and orchestral tunes floated from an ensemble in the hall. Servers glided through the assembly carrying platters of bubbly and appetizers. Within moments, James appeared. He looked polished in a custom outfit, his expression tinged with astonishment as he caught sight of Emily and Alexander. James's bride-to-be, Victoria, stood at his side, a graceful figure in a gleaming gold dress, her light hair arranged into a refined bun. Victoria's gaze flickered with curiosity as she recognized Emily. "Emily, Victoria greeted with a friendly smile, extending a hand. I'm so pleased you could attend. James mentioned he encountered you recently. Emily shook her hand, noticing the enormous gem on Victoria's finger. She applied her own polite smile. Thank you for the invitation. James swallowed. Alexander, he said, nodding in recognition. Nice to see you again. Alexander responded with quiet politeness. Likewise. Congratulations on your betrothal. A somewhat uneasy pause ensued, broken when Victoria touched James's arm and excused them to welcome other visitors. Emily breathed out. She cast Alexander a thankful look. Well, that wasn't too terrible, she whispered, though her heartbeat was still racing. They proceeded deeper into the hall, tasting small bites and greeting a few associates. Sophia was there with her partner, signaling Emily over to his side. They conversed for a while, Sophia inserting clever comments about James's ostentatious decoration choices. Even so, an underlying current of strain wove through the night. As they observed from a distance, James and Victoria directed the assembly. Victoria seemed perfectly composed, a sparkle of elegance in every movement. James, for his part, appeared proud, almost self-satisfied as he presented Victoria to important figures in the room. It was a display of societal strategy that made Emily's mind spin. Partway through the night, a quiet descended over the hall. James tapped a speaker. Good evening, all, he said, his voice resounding. Victoria and I want to express gratitude for joining us to celebrate our betrothal. We're excited to share our joy with all of you. Polite clapping echoed across the space. Victoria took the speaker with a gracious smile. I couldn't be more thankful to have James by my side. We anticipate many more achievements together, and we're moved to have our companions and relatives supporting us this evening. Thank you. Another wave of clapping. James passed the speaker to the musicians, who began a lively melody. People resumed conversing as servers provided fresh bubbly. Alexander turned to Emily. You've conducted yourself like royalty, he whispered. She released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I think this is sufficient resolution for me. Maybe we can depart soon. Then from behind them, a voice mocked. Departing so early. You haven't even felicitated the joyful pair appropriately. It was James's mother, Margaret Thompson, a lady with a fondness for adorning jewels and disdain. She had initially favored Emily until the separation, when she evidently concluded Emily was responsible. Hello, Margaret, Emily said, keeping her tone steady. Margaret examined Alexander from head to toe. And who is this man? Before Emily could speak, Alexander smiled politely. My name is Alexander Hayes, madam. I'm here with Emily. Margaret's stare narrowed, as if estimating value by appearance alone. You seem familiar. Have we encountered somewhere before? Alexander's calm facade revealed no unease. I'm not certain, he said evenly. Perhaps at a benefit soiree. That must be it. Margaret sniffed, redirecting her focus to Emily. I suppose it's positive you've progressed, though some of us question if you'll ever truly value what James contributed to your life. Alexander's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained silent, permitting Emily to reply. She refused to retreat from Margaret's condescension, with all due respect. I don't think that's any of your concern anymore. I wish James and Victoria well. Margaret's lips thinned. Well, do enjoy the gathering. She turned and departed, leaving a haze of strain in her wake. Alexander placed a supportive palm on Emily's back. You all right? Fine, Emily said quietly. Let's step outdoors for a moment. They walked onto a small balcony overlooking the urban lights. The melodies and chatter from inside diminished. Emily finally released a long breath, freeing the accumulated strain. That woman always made me feel insufficient. Alexander rubbed her arm soothingly. You're far from insufficient. I'm proud of you for holding your position. A burst of wind disarranged Emily's hair. She turned toward Alexander, about to thank him again, when a swirl of voices from inside the hall captured their attention. They exchanged curious glances and returned inside to see James at the speaker once more, Victoria at his side, but this time they appeared agitated. Please, everyone, stay calm. James's voice boomed through the amplifiers. The assembly seemed restless. Emily spotted a sturdy security officer navigating through visitors heading in her direction. Alarmed, she wondered what was occurring. Excuse me, Mr. Hayes, the officer said, eyes shifting between Alexander and James on the platform. "Could you accompany me, please?" Emily's heart sank. She gripped Alexander's arm. "What's happening?" The officer looked uneasy. "We received a report that a particular visitor might be here under deceptive circumstances." A hush descended as visitors turned to observe the disturbance. James took the speaker again, his voice strained. "Alexander Hayes, we need to confirm your identity. We can't permit anyone intruding this occasion." A wave of incredulity rippled through Emily. She directed a glare at James. "You invited us indirectly, but still." Victoria stepped to the speaker, her gaze darting nervously between James and Alexander. "Look, James, this doesn't have to become a spectacle." Alexander raised his hands calmly. "It's all right," he said, addressing the officer. "I can explain who I am." He turned, surveying the assembly. "But I'd like to know who's responsible for this report." People were murmuring, the speculation machine operating. Emily glared at James, wondering if he orchestrated this humiliation. James, for his part, looked perplexed. Margaret, standing nearby, seemed self-satisfied. Suddenly, a well-attired older gentleman in the corner, someone Emily recognized as Victoria's father, Harold Langford, spoke up. "I made the call," he said in a sharp tone. He advanced, directing Alexander with a firm look. "I've heard whispers about you, Mr. Hayes, whispers that you claim to be affluent, charitable, but no one can identify the origin of your wealth. We can't allow just anyone into these networks." Emily felt fury boil in her veins. "He's not just anyone." Alexander gently squeezed her hand, signaling her to remain composed. He faced Harold Langford with remarkable poise. "Sir, you're correct that I usually maintain a discreet profile about my finances. But let me assure you I'm more than qualified to attend this occasion. If you'd like, we can step aside and verify any credentials you require." A tense confrontation followed. James swallowed, uncertain. Victoria looked embarrassed by her father's eruption. The security officer spoke quietly into his communication device for a moment, then nodded. "It's verified, sir." "My apologies, Mr. Hayes." He retreated, allowing Alexander to stand freely. An uncomfortable quiet filled the space. Alexander turned toward James and Victoria, keeping his voice composed. "Congratulations again on your betrothal. I think we'll be departing now." With that, he took Emily's arm, leading her out. Sophia followed them, muttering imprecations under her breath at the humiliation they had just endured. Outside in the foyer, Emily's emotions erupted. "I can't believe they attempted to eject you like some fraud." She blinked back tears of anger. Alexander's expression softened. "I've handled worse. Let's just go home." And as they stepped into the night, a single undeniable fact solidified in Emily's mind. James and Victoria had not only tried to embarrass her, but also Alexander. The conflict was initiated now, and the next encounter would undoubtedly bring even more dramatic disclosures. The morning following the catastrophic betrothal gala, online platforms ignited with rumors. News had circulated rapidly about the clash at the Grand Plaza. Several gossip publications and elite blogs feature titles such as Tycoon financier misidentified as intruder and bride-to-be's father ignites confrontation at extravagant betrothal. Emily awoke to messages from Sophia describing the debacle's digital aftermath in delighted detail. Even James had attempted contacting her device late last night, leaving a recording that she disregarded. She wasn't interested in his justifications, but curiosity prompted her to listen. His voice sounded disturbed. "Emily, hey, I'm sorry about what occurred tonight. I had no notion Victoria's father would behave that way. Look, maybe we can converse sometime soon. Resolve the issues. Let me know." She erased the recording, irritation mingling with a peculiar satisfaction. She found comfort in the fact that Alexander's status was finally revealed. He was no longer the reserved man in the background, but a powerful individual who commanded respect in exclusive networks. Alexander, for his part, reacted to the turmoil with typical tranquility. That morning, he invited Emily to his luxurious apartment for breakfast. Over beverages and baked goods, he dissected the entire incident with mild entertainment. "I suppose the Langfords have it in their minds that I'm some swindler who charmed my way into upper society. It's not the first occasion someone has doubted my motives." Emily frowned over the edge of her cup. "It's not just." You have to demonstrate yourself every time. You've accomplished so much good with your charitable efforts. He shrugged. Wealth complicates bonds. People see the assets and either desire something from me or suspect I have some concealed purpose. Reaching across the small table in his sitting area, he brushed his digit over her palm. It's one reason I don't discuss it much, but I don't want you to become entangled in the conflict either. Emily shook her head, intertwining her fingers with his. I'm proud of who you are, Alexander. If someone has an issue with it, that's on them. A gentleness flickered in his gaze, and he leaned forward to place a tender kiss on her forehead. Just then, his device buzzed. He glanced at it, brows knitting together. Everything okay? Emily asked. He sighed. It's a pressing issue with one of my enterprises. Something about a purchase agreement. I might need to travel to Los Angeles tomorrow. Emily set down her beverage, concern emerging. For how long? A couple of days, maybe a week. I'm not sure yet. He exhaled. I'm sorry about the timing. I hate departing right after all this turmoil. She offered a reassuring grin. Don't worry. Manage your affairs. I'll be fine. They spent the day together, walking through the garden and exploring a nearby creative display, choosing to ignore the media storm swirling around them. Emily felt a growing sense of security in Alexander's presence, as though together they could endure any tempest. Yet beneath her calm, she harbored a suspicion that James wouldn't let this event rest. He flourished on dominance and despised appearing lesser or eclipsed. Now that Alexander's prosperity was public, Emily suspected James would feel endangered. And where James felt endangered, difficulties tended to ensue. Her instinct was correct. Late that afternoon, just as she was about to return to her residence, her device buzzed with another call from an unfamiliar number. She hesitated, then answered. Emily, it's Victoria. The voice quivered with compelled composure. Can we meet? I need to discuss James with you. Emily's pulse quickened. Victoria, why would she contact? She half expected an ambush or a rebuke for overshadowing the betrothal gala. Yet curiosity urged her to consent. They agreed to convene at a serene cafe the next day. As Emily ended the call, she felt an uneasy churn in her stomach. Victoria's tone hadn't been boastful or confrontational. It had sounded almost frantic. Perhaps there were fractures in the flawless exterior of James and Victoria's betrothal. And if so, what volatile secrets might emerge? The next day, an overcast sky promised precipitation as Emily settled into a side booth at Harlow's Cafe in the central area. The small, comfortable establishment was known for its wide array of herbal infusions and peaceful atmosphere. Victoria arrived soon after, dressed in a basic dark overcoat over a white top, her stance stiff with tension. Thank you for meeting me, Victoria said quietly, positioning herself across from Emily. Her palms shook slightly as she removed her overcoat. Emily scanned Victoria's face, noticing faint shadows under her eyes. She didn't resemble the glowing bride-to-be from the betrothal gala. No issue, Emily replied. What's occurring? A attendant approached, and Victoria ordered peppermint infusion while Emily requested green tea. They waited in awkward quiet until the attendant departed. Victoria swallowed. I know this might sound odd, but I don't have many people I can converse with about James. He mentioned so little of you, but I conducted some research. I know how your union ended suddenly and painfully. Emily's stomach tightened. What do you wish to learn? Victoria interlaced her fingers. Is he always this dominating? I've seen hints, like last night, how he managed a fiasco with your partner. He was enraged, not because his father-in-law embarrassed Alexander, but because he felt eclipsed. We had a massive argument afterward. Emily studied Victoria's face, weighing how truthful to be. She decided there was no purpose in softening. James has a necessity to triumph, she began. Everything in our union turned into a contest. It wasn't always that way. In university, he was driven, but also compassionate. Over time, though, accomplishment became his fixation. He wanted me to meet impossibly elevated criteria, and if I couldn't, he demeaned me. That's when we started quarreling. He never viewed me as his equal. It was always about him. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'm beginning to observe that, too. After last night, he stormed around the apartment, yelling about how he'd be cursed if he let some outsider overshadow him. I pointed out Alexander's obviously not an outsider, and James exploded. She swallowed, looking down at her palms. I have resources and connections. But James wants me for more than that. He wants me to assist him ascend higher. Emily felt a surge of compassion. Despite her resentments, she knew how captivating James's allure could be, how simple it was to become immersed in his grand visions. So why contact me? Emily asked gently. Victoria hesitated, glancing around the cafe as though fearing listeners. Because I'm not sure I can proceed with this betrothal, and I need to know if James has done anything suspicious in the past, financially or otherwise. My father is urging the marriage, but I'm frightened. Emily's thoughts drifted to the disputes about money in her union. James had once proposed they use her personal funds to finance a hazardous venture. When she declined, he labeled her narrow-minded and unhelpful. But did he commit anything unlawful? Not to her awareness. I can't say he ever violated the law, Emily admitted. He just manipulates scenarios to his advantage, often at someone else's cost. Victoria exhaled as though defeated. I see, she murmured. Their infusions arrived, and she stirred hers absent-mindedly. He's pressuring me to sign a premarital agreement that heavily benefits him. Something about future profits based on my father's investments. Emily's brows rose. That's a major warning sign. I know, Victoria said, tears threatening to fall. He wants me to sign before we establish a wedding date. My father sees it as standard procedure, but I'm not comfortable. And last night, the way he ranted about Alexander made me realize I don't even know this man I'm betrothed to. A wave of sympathy washed over Emily. Despite her anger at James, she couldn't deny that Victoria was ensnared in a harmful pattern. You have every right to be cautious, Emily said softly. Listen, if you need someone to converse with or a place to clarify your thoughts, you can contact me. I'm not your adversary. James is my history. Victoria lowered her head. Thank you. I appreciate it. They sipped their infusions in thoughtful silence. After a few minutes, Victoria spoke again. I'm planning to confront James about delaying the wedding until I feel secure about everything. I'm not sure how he'll react. Emily recalled James's volatile temper when challenged. Whatever you decide, be safe. James can be vengeful if he feels betrayed. Keep your support network close. Victoria nodded, blinking back tears. I will. And Emily, I'm sorry about how my father treated Alexander. He thinks everyone's after our resources, but he was inappropriate. Emily smiled gently. Apology accepted. They separated outside the cafe, the clouds above threatening a deluge. As Victoria walked away, shoulders hunched against the breeze, Emily felt a swell of complicated emotions. Pity for Victoria, disgust for James, and a flicker of relief that she had escaped that life. Yet she also sensed that this conversation would have repercussions. James, feeling trapped, was capable of retaliating in perilous ways. And Victoria, if she chose to challenge him, could expose a side of James that Emily knew all too well, the side that never forgave or forgot perceived offenses. A storm was brewing, one that could overturn everyone's lives. Emily awoke to a barrage of urgent messages from her best friend, Sophia. Sleepy-eyed, she activated the television to view an urgent news report. James Thompson under scrutiny for deception. Just days after his arrogant betrothal gala, he was now the subject of a prominent probe into alleged economic offenses. Journalists claimed he had fabricated documents in a business consolidation, exploiting his bride-to-be's family ties for illicit benefits. Emily felt conflicting feelings swirl: astonishment, justification, and an unusual lingering sorrow for someone she had once cherished. Her device rang again. Sophia breathlessly provided the details. Victoria's father, Harold Langford, had apparently retracted all his backing, and rumors suggested Victoria herself had submitted damaging proof to authorities. James, confronted with possible detention, was frantic and isolated. As Emily pondered the rumors, an incoming call from an unknown number startled her. She answered, preparing for whatever followed. Emily, James's distinctive voice rasped. I'm without choices. They blocked my funds and Victoria's departed. You have to assist me. His words tumbled in a panicked haste. She could almost hear him pacing, rage mixed with disbelief. James, she said sharply, I'm not your spouse anymore, and your issues aren't mine. If you falsified papers or deceived financiers, that's on you. He emitted a ragged chuckle. Everyone thinks they know superior. All these elite people only care about one thing: succeeding. I follow their guidelines, and now I'm the antagonist. Even you're forsaking me. His tone turned blaming. You realize that Alexander and his fortunes won't always be there to resolve your problems. Emily bristled, but kept her voice steady. My life is no longer intertwined with yours. Don't ever contact me again. He disconnected suddenly, leaving her shaken yet oddly freed. She realized in that moment that James's collapse brought ultimate resolution. She had no remaining sense of duty. He was merely a warning story of unrestrained drive, and she was finished bearing the weight of his errors. 2 days later, Emily's partner, Alexander Hayes, returned from his business journey in Los Angeles. The instant she saw him exit the lift into his luxurious apartment, relief flooded her. Dropping her purse, she wrapped him in a firm embrace. He caressed her hair, whispering how much he had missed her before she guided him to the couch. Alexander, she began softly, while you were away, James's entire world fell apart. He's under scrutiny. Victoria ended the betrothal, and he's basically pleading with me for assistance. Alexander's brow furrowed in worry. He contacted you directly. She nodded. He wants funds for a superior attorney. I declined. It felt harsh, but I couldn't let him pull me into his disorder again. Alexander exhaled, relief apparent. I'm proud of you for establishing limits. If you ever feel threatened, I'll do whatever it takes to safeguard you. They spent the next few hours updating each other, discussing the vortex of legal turmoil and press attention. Even gossip outlets took keen interest, connecting Alexander's discreet influence with James's dramatic ruin. Emily disliked the speculation, but Alexander reassured her that such whispers would diminish. That evening, they attended a benefit art sale in support of regional creators. As they entered the venue, photographers captured images of Alexander, now fully acknowledged as one of the city's most liberal benefactors. Emily stiffened momentarily at the focus, but he leaned in, whispering, "Relax. We're here for a noble purpose." Encouraged by his affection, she explored the various creations, eventually becoming enamored with a colorful contemporary work. Alexander outbid everyone else, presenting Emily the artwork with a subtle, victorious grin. Afterward, they organized a small assembly with intimate friends in Alexander's luxurious apartment to celebrate both Emily's new agreement with a luxury resort chain and the addition of the striking art piece to her design collection. Sophia arrived, embracing Emily and vividly recounting the latest on James's scrutiny, from terminated agreements to furious financiers. While part of Emily felt a pang of compassion, she couldn't deny a sense of confirmation that she had done the right thing by leaving him. Later that night, once the visitors left, Emily and Alexander sat alone in the softly illuminated sitting room. Urban lights sparkled through the expansive windows, reflecting off the newly installed artwork. With a glass of wine in her hand, Emily gazed at the horizon and felt a profound current of peace. Gone were the days when she doubted her value because of James's criticisms or endured his indirect compliments. She turned to Alexander, who was observing her with quiet tenderness. "I never thought I'd end up here," she admitted, voice catching in her throat. "A year ago, I was still shattered from the separation. Now everything feels achievable." Alexander took her hand and gently kissed her knuckles. "You deserve a companion who sees your genius, not someone who diminishes you to enhance his own self-image." A small wry smile curved his lips. "As for the rest, my wealth, my connections, I want you to know I admire your self-reliance. I'm here to support you, but you've already proven you can stand independently." His words filled her with a warmth that chased away any lingering doubt. Together, they approached the wide window. The metropolis spread out below like an endless fabric of light. Emily leaned her head on Alexander's shoulder, recalling the wounded woman she had been, overshadowed by James's demands, made to feel inadequate. She had reclaimed her life, rediscovered her passion for design, and opened her heart to a man who honored her aspirations rather than suppressed them. Down on the avenues, the vibrant chaos of the city pulsed, indifferent to one man's downfall or another's success. Yet in that still, intimate moment, Emily felt renewed, liberated from her history, and embracing a future that shone with possibility. James's misfortune belonged to the gossip columns now, while she stood at the brink of a new beginning, hand in hand with a man whose quiet fortitude and boundless loyalty she treasured more than anything. Thank you for accompanying us on this voyage through anguish, controversy, and ultimately strengthening. Emily's tale is a proof that even when existence crumbles around us, when former affection turns harmful and disloyalty seems unavoidable, we can emerge more resilient and insightful. She rose from her separation to discover genuine fondness in the embrace of a tycoon who valued her not for her financial status, but for her steadfast essence. James's collapse was a severe instruction in arrogance and drive gone wrong. Yet, in the end, Emily didn't revel or pursue vengeance. She simply advanced into the joy she truly merited. If you found this narrative captivating, please press that approval button to inform us. Share it with companions who enjoy a fine drama. And don't forget to join our channel for more compelling stories of affection, defeat, and restoration. Your backing means everything to us. Thank you for viewing.